I found out my wife was cheating because we stopped at the same red light. I wish I was making that up. I wish this was one of those stories where there were signs for months, where I slowly pieced it together and had time to prepare myself. But no. My entire marriage cracked open in the span of maybe 12 seconds, on an ordinary Thursday, with the sun in my eyes and my hand wrapped around a cheap gas station coffee. I'm 36. My wife, Emily, is 34. We'd been married for 7 years, together for 10. No kids, unless you count the dog we treated like a child and the houseplants she insisted had personalities. From the outside, our life looked stable. Respectable. Boring in the best possible way. I worked in logistics for a regional supply company, mostly long hours and spreadsheets. Emily worked in marketing for a dental group and always joked that her real talent was making root canals sound fun. We had routines. Tuesday takeout. Sunday grocery shopping. Dumb little habits that make you think your life is solid because it repeats itself in familiar ways. She kissed me goodbye every morning. I texted her when I was headed home. We fought sometimes, but never in a way that made me think we were broken. Bills, chores, her mother, my tendency to leave cabinet doors open. Marriage stuff. Normal stuff. If there were warning signs before that day, I either missed them or explained them away because that's what people do when they love someone. They protect the version of reality that hurts the least. That Thursday started badly and got worse. I had to drive across town for a meeting with a warehouse client after one of our dispatch managers called out sick. Traffic was miserable. Construction everywhere. I was already irritated because Emily had left for work earlier than usual, saying she had to meet with a new client before office hours. I barely registered it at the time. I just grunted, half awake, and told her to have a good day. Around 8:40, I was stuck at a light near downtown, boxed in on both sides, creeping forward in that miserable inch-by-inch way that makes you feel like your whole life is being wasted one brake tap at a time. I glanced to my left because a black SUV had pulled up next to me too fast and stopped hard. At first, I only noticed the woman in the passenger seat because of her hair. Emily has this dark auburn hair that catches red in the sunlight. It's stupid, but even after 10 years, I'd still recognize it anywhere. I looked over again, more carefully this time. Same hair. Same gold hoop earrings. Same cream-colored blouse she put on that morning while complaining she needed to buy a lint roller. My stomach dropped so fast it felt like missing a stair in the dark. But that wasn't the part that broke me. She was laughing. Not polite laughing. Not office laughing. She had her head tilted back, hand on the guy's arm, smiling in that loose, easy way I hadn't seen directed at me in longer than I wanted to admit. The driver was a man maybe around our age, dark hair, trimmed beard, white button-down, expensive watch. One hand on the steering wheel. The other resting way too comfortably on her thigh. Not near her thigh. On it. I froze. For a second, my brain refused to process what my eyes were seeing. I actually remember thinking maybe it was her coworker and maybe I was misunderstanding something. Maybe he dropped something. Maybe she was upset and he was comforting her. Maybe. The human brain will perform Olympic-level gymnastics to save the heart from impact. Then Emily leaned over and kissed him. Quick. Casual. Familiar. Like it wasn't the first time. Like it wasn't even a big deal. I don't remember breathing. The light turned green and traffic started moving, but I just sat there for half a second too long until the guy behind me laid on his horn. The SUV pulled ahead, slipped into the next lane, and I reacted on instinct. I followed them. I'm not proud of that part, but I'd be lying if I said I considered doing anything else. Every part of me was hot and cold at the same time. My hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the wheel harder just to stay steady. I kept enough distance that I hoped Emily wouldn't notice my truck, but close enough not to lose them. They drove 3 more blocks, then turned into the parking garage of a boutique hotel downtown. That detail hit me harder than the kiss. Not a coffee shop. Not an office building. Not a random errand. A hotel. They didn't see me pull past the entrance. I kept driving, turned right at the next corner, then pulled over in a loading zone and just sat there staring at nothing. It felt like someone had reached into my chest and started tearing wiring out with both hands. I wanted to throw up. I wanted to smash my steering wheel. I wanted to wake up. Instead, I checked the clock. 8:47 a.m. It's weird what your mind grabs onto in traumatic moments. I remember the time. I remember a radio ad playing in the background for a furniture sale. I remember a woman walking a tiny white dog past my truck like nothing in the world had changed. Meanwhile, my world had split in half. I called Emily. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to hear her say it. Maybe I wanted one last chance for reality to correct itself. She answered on the third ring, sounding rushed and distracted. Hey, babe. Can I call you back? I'm walking into a meeting. A meeting. I looked toward the garage entrance and felt something inside me go quiet in a way that scared me more than the anger. Yeah, I said. Sure. That was it. That was the moment something died. Because if she had panicked, stumbled, sounded guilty, maybe I would have exploded right there. But she lied so smoothly. So casually. Like deceiving me had become muscle memory. I hung up and sat there for another 10 minutes. I should have gone to work. I should have called someone. I should have done 100 reasonable things. Instead, I opened our phone bill account from my mobile browser and started checking numbers. There it was. One number I didn't recognize. Repeated over and over. Late evenings. Early mornings. Lunch hours. Weekends when she said she was running errands. Calls ranging from 2 minutes to nearly an hour. Months of them. I scrolled until my vision blurred. 3 months. Minimum. I saved the number, copied it, searched it on every app one could think of, and got a name off a profile photo on one of those payment platforms people forget are public. Daniel Mercer. I didn't know him. Not personally. But by then I already knew enough. I skipped the client meeting and went home. The drive felt unreal, like I was piloting someone else's body. At the house, everything looked exactly the same. Her coffee mug in the sink. Her sneakers by the door. The blanket we kept folded over the couch arm. The ordinary evidence of a shared life that suddenly felt staged. I went into the home office and checked our old laptop, the one she sometimes used when hers was charging. I know some people are going to judge me for that, but save it. The line had already been crossed, and it wasn't by me. She was still logged into her email. Most of it was clean. Work stuff. Store receipts. Appointment reminders. But then I searched his first name. Nothing. I searched hotel. Nothing again. She wasn't stupid. Then I checked her deleted folder. And there it was. A reservation confirmation from that exact boutique hotel from 2 weeks earlier. Different day. Same hotel. Room booked under Daniel's name, forwarded to her personal email with a single-line reply from her, "Can't wait to have you to myself again." I just stared at the screen. Again. Again. That one word told me more than anything else could have. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a one-time lapse or a drunken bad decision. This was a full second life with planning, secrecy, and practice. This was repetition. Intention. Betrayal with a calendar invite. I kept digging, because apparently once your heart is broken, your self-respect also takes a temporary leave of absence. I found messages synced to the browser from an app she used on desktop sometimes. Not all of them, but enough. Enough to know they'd been seeing each other for months. Enough to know he knew she was married. Enough to know she complained about me to him. Said I was predictable. Said our marriage felt safe but dead. Said she didn't know whether she still loved me or just loved how easy I made her life. That line did something ugly to me. Because I had spent years trying to be dependable. Faithful. Calm. I thought those things were the foundation. I thought being the man who showed up every day mattered. To her, apparently, it just made me convenient. And the worst part? At 6:15 that morning, before leaving the house, she texted him, "Miss you already." She had sent that while standing 10 feet away from me in our kitchen. I didn't cry then. I didn't yell. I just sat in that office chair, staring at the screen, feeling myself become someone colder. That was the beginning. Not the beginning of the affair. The beginning of the end. For the next few minutes I just sat there staring at the screen, rereading the same messages like my brain still hoped they would somehow rearrange themselves into something less painful. They didn't. Every line made it worse. There were jokes between them. Inside jokes. Photos of restaurants I thought she went to with coworkers. Plans for weekends when she told me she had marketing events. One message from him said, "Same hotel next week," and her reply was a simple heart emoji. I felt something heavy settle in my chest. Not explosive anger. Not yet. Just this dull, crushing weight that made it hard to breathe. But after the shock passed, another thought started creeping in. If I confronted her right now, what would happen? She'd lie. Or cry. Or twist it into something complicated and emotional until I started questioning my own memory. I had already seen enough to know she was good at lying. She had just done it to my face an hour earlier without missing a beat. No. If I was going to end this, I wanted the truth laid out in front of her with no way out. So instead of calling her again, I did something else. I saved everything. Screenshots of the emails. Screenshots of the messages that were still synced to the browser. I forwarded the hotel confirmation to my own email. Then I took pictures of the phone records showing that number repeated again and again for months. Every piece of it. Part of me hated myself for being so methodical in that moment, like I had suddenly turned into a detective in my own marriage. But another part of me knew I needed it. Because once the confrontation happened, she would try to rewrite the story. People always do. After about an hour, I closed the laptop and leaned back in the chair. The house was silent except for the faint ticking of the kitchen clock. I realized something strange then. The anger was finally starting to arrive. Not the screaming kind. The quiet kind. The kind that sits deep in your stomach and sharpens your thoughts. I checked the time. 11:12 a.m. If Emily had gone to that hotel at 8:45, there was a good chance she was still there. That idea made my hands tighten into fists. For a second, I actually considered driving back downtown. Kicking in the hotel room door. Doing something stupid that would probably ruin the rest of my life. But I didn't. Instead, I grabbed my keys and left the house. Not to go to the hotel. To go somewhere else first. If my marriage was going to explode today, I wanted to make sure I was the one holding the match. I drove for about 15 minutes before I realized where I was going. A lawyer's office. It wasn't some dramatic movie moment where I planned everything in advance. It was more like instinct took over while my brain was still catching up with reality. A friend of mine had gone through a nasty divorce 2 years earlier and I remembered the name of the attorney he used. Somehow my mind grabbed onto that memory like a life raft. When I pulled into the parking lot, my hands were still shaking. I sat in the truck for a moment staring at the building. A small, brick office with a brass sign that read, "Family Law." The words felt strange. Like they belonged to someone else's life. But then I pictured Emily laughing in that SUV again. And suddenly the hesitation disappeared. Inside, the receptionist looked surprised when I asked if anyone was available for a quick consultation. I probably looked like hell, pale, tense, still wearing the same wrinkled shirt I had thrown on that morning. After a few minutes she said one of the attorneys had time for a short meeting. That's how I ended up sitting across from a guy named Mark Peterson explaining the worst day of my life. I didn't tell him every emotional detail. I just laid out the facts. My wife. The car. The kiss. The hotel. The messages I found. He listened quietly, nodding, occasionally jotting something down. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and asked the question that made everything feel painfully real. Do you think the marriage is salvageable? I didn't even have to think about it. No. Saying it out loud felt like slamming a door. Mark nodded slowly, like he'd heard that answer 1,000 times before. Then the best thing you can do right now, he said, is stay calm and protect yourself. Don't confront her emotionally. Don't destroy evidence. And whatever you do, don't make a scene that could be used against you later. That last part made me think again about the hotel room I had almost driven to. He explained a few basic steps, how divorce filings worked in our state, what evidence could be useful, how assets were usually divided. It was a strange conversation to have only a few hours after discovering your spouse was cheating. But oddly enough, it helped. Because it forced me to think clearly. Before I left, I emailed him the screenshots and documents I had saved earlier. He told me to keep collecting anything relevant but not to access anything illegally. Then he asked one more question. When does your wife usually get home? Around 6. He nodded again. If you're going to confront her, do it calmly. Let her talk. People often reveal more than they intend when they think they can control the conversation. I thanked him, walked back to my truck, and sat there for a while. The sky had turned gray and the afternoon traffic was starting to build. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. A message from Emily. Hey babe. Long meeting today. Might be a little late tonight. I stared at that text for a long time. Long meeting. The words felt almost surreal now. Because only a few hours earlier I had watched her kiss another man at a red light. And now she was still lying to me like everything was normal. That was the moment something inside me hardened completely. I typed back a simple reply. No problem. See you tonight. Then I started the engine and drove home. Because in a few hours, when she walked through that door, our entire life together was going to collapse. And she had no idea that I already knew everything. Emily came home at 6:18 p.m. I remember the exact time because I had been sitting on the couch staring at the front door for almost 20 minutes. The house was quiet, the same quiet that had followed me all day, but now it felt different. Heavy. Like the air itself was waiting for something. The door opened and she walked in carrying her purse and laptop bag like any other evening. Hey, she said casually, kicking off her shoes. Sorry, today was insane. I just looked at her. For a second I wondered if I was looking at the same person I had shared a decade of my life with. She looked exactly the same as always. Same tired smile. Same habit of brushing her hair behind her ear when she talked. Except now I knew. Long meeting? I asked. Yeah, she sighed, dropping her bag on the chair. Back-to-back calls all day. I'm exhausted. The lie came so easily that it almost impressed me. I nodded slowly and stood up. Funny, I said. Because the meeting I saw this morning looked a lot more like a date. Her entire body froze. For a split second her eyes widened before she forced a confused expression. What are you talking about? I walked over to the kitchen counter where my phone was sitting. Then I turned the screen toward her. The picture I had taken earlier showed her in the passenger seat of that SUV, leaning over the center console, kissing him. The color drained from her face instantly. For a moment neither of us said anything. Then she whispered, "Where did you get that?" I was at the red light next to you. The silence that followed felt endless. She opened her mouth like she wanted to explain, but nothing came out. Her eyes started filling with tears, and I could already see the familiar script forming: apologies, excuses, confusion. But before she could start, I spoke again. I know about the hotel, I said calmly. I know about Daniel. And I know it's been going on for months. That's when she finally broke. She started crying, saying it wasn't supposed to happen, that she didn't mean for things to go this far, that she still cared about me. But the strange thing was, I didn't feel angry anymore. Just empty. Because the truth was, the moment I saw her in that car, our marriage had already ended. I talked to a lawyer today, I said quietly. Her crying stopped instantly. What? I'm filing for divorce. The words hung in the air between us like a final verdict. She stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. Maybe in a way she was. The man who trusted her that morning didn't exist anymore. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. As I stepped outside, I heard her call my name behind me, but I didn't turn around. Because the moment that red light turned green that morning, my life had already started moving in a different direction. And this time, I wasn't following her anymore. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I post new Reddit stories about cheating, relationships, and crazy life situations every day. And if you have a story like this, feel free to share it in the comments.